I am not Tony Robbins, okay? I am not going to be that coach, right? And just be authentic, because the people that will work best with you will gravitate towards you, will feel good about your work, and they will spread the word to other people about that.
This is Therapist Clubhouse, a podcast for private practice entrepreneurs. I'm Annie Schusler. This week, I'm talking to my friend Pat Chambers, a professional coach in Oakland, California. Listen as Pat dives into why, as a licensed clinical psychologist, she's chosen to work as a coach rather than a therapist. And then get ready to hear her advice on how you can add coaching to your offerings if you decide it's right for you. Hi, Pat. Welcome to Therapist Clubhouse.
Good morning.
So I've known you for a long time, and then back a number of years ago, I hired you as my coach to help me through a big career transition. And so I'm just really excited to have you here to share your wisdom, share your experience with all of us. So one thing I know about you is you have not gone the expected route. You're a licensed psychologist, but you've chosen to be a coach rather than work as a therapist.
That's true.
So can you tell us a little bit about that decision?
Sure. And actually, I've gone a little bit different route all along the way. So I did get my PhD in clinical psychology and ended up going into the nonprofit world, working primarily doing family therapy, and enjoyed that a lot and was successful. And of course, when you're successful, they promote you into other kinds of work. And so I ended up doing much more management and administration. And so I continued to do that over the years and never really did the typical or traditional therapy practice. Mm-hmm. But when I heard about coaching and started looking into that, just bells and whistles went off, and I thought, this is what I love. This is me. So it really fit.
What do you think made it such a good fit for you?
You know, I would say that it really tuned into my strengths and interest. One of the things in graduate school that I was never really good at the diagnosis part. Mm. And, other people would come up with it and I'd be like, oh, I got it wrong, right? Mm. Because I just had a hard time doing the labeling and figuring out all of the intricacies of that. What I really liked to do was to get people moving and see them make progress. And because I tend to be very organized, I'm a Virgo, so I have that in me. It just fit in that I'm much more interested in the moving forward and getting things accomplished.
Okay. And I also know from working with you that your coaching has kind of a spiritual, or I think of it as spiritual, but I don't know how you would label it, but just sort of a big life purpose kind of bent to it as well.
Yeah. Thanks for saying that. Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. I mean, I consider myself a spiritual person in the broad sense of the term. And in terms of the coaching, I'm really looking at people as whole, creative, that they don't need to be fixed. It really fits in with the positive psychology approach, that we're looking at people and seeing what their strengths are and moving in that direction. So it is about I would say also about the whole person, not just a particular topic. So some people might come to coaching and say, I want to lose weight, or I want to decide what my next job is. Well, all of those have much broader aspects in terms of the person, similar to therapy, right? They may come with one issue, but then there are other things that develop along the way that you're looking at.
Okay. Yeah. Like when I came to you, it was about a career transition and for me figuring out this whole thing that I'm now doing with helping therapists. But I remember thinking, oh, okay, this isn't what I expected, that we started in a much more holistic way of looking at my whole life, my values.
Yes. Even as you say that, I think about working with you and with other people. When you do that, something changes. I mean, people lighten up and light up because they're really talking about what's important to them. And when you talk about the values, that's really important in the coaching, is understanding what people's values are. And values in the sense not of shoulds, but in the sense of what makes them feel fulfilled, what brings joy to their life, where's the juice. So it really is about making sure you're looking at that, because that's going to really drive everything and provide the energy and motivation.
Yeah. And who are you most working with now in your coaching practice?
That's been another interesting process. So when I started out coaching, I was doing general life coaching and I thought I wanted to work primarily with women, say in middle age, that were going through transitions. And then over time, again, looking at my own personal strengths and interest, I found that I was very interested in helping people get organized. And so I started doing more around that, just whether it was literally and physically helping people organize their space or working with people around time management. And then another area that really has interested me for years and years has been financial organizing. I was the daughter of a certified public accountant, so I grew up with numbers. I loved numbers, and I learned a lot from my father about financial management and really wanted to pass that on to women. And then that has grown from, again, I started more with thinking about, well, it's probably I'll be working with women because a lot of times they're just not comfortable with this or haven't had the training. But I'm actually doing a lot with men, with women, with older people, younger people, and couples, which I also really like working with couples in this area.
And they really need it. And when you work with a couple, let's say on financial coaching, what kind of process do you walk them through?
It's similar to working with the individual in that I'll start with them around values, and typically I'll have them go through an exercise where each of the individuals in the couple will make a list of their top values. Okay, do that separately. Then we get together, share those, compare, and then come up with the couple's values. Because typically there are going to be, the top 3, 4, maybe 5 values that they both can sign on to and really feel that this is important, and then use that as the foundation for setting their goals for the financial aspects of this.
And then are you getting into the nitty-gritty with them around finances?
I do.
Oh, that seems so fun, Pat.
It is totally fun. I love it. Yes. So it's interesting because particularly with the couples financial organizing, it really is a blend of using those skills that I learned in doing therapy, okay, and doing the nitty-gritty stuff. So looking at the values and then actually setting up, looking at where the family or the individual's income, expenses, debts, right? And then looking at what their goals are. And we actually set up a monthly budget or spending plan. Look at that. Typically with both individuals and couples, I generally, after the first few sessions and getting that set up, we meet on a monthly basis. And I should say, most of my work is done by phone. So we meet on a monthly basis, review that. And, sometimes the session will be really just about the numbers. And sometimes it's about the arguments they've been having that week about the numbers, or it could just be not being clear about where they want to head next with it, and maybe some differences between the two of them, and trying to find the place where they find the mutual agreement with what they want to work on.
Okay, that's really interesting. And it really makes it clear what the difference is between what you're doing with them and what maybe a couples therapist would be doing with them.
Yes.
Yeah. And it feels really close to financial therapy in a way. Although I guess maybe getting even further into the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, for me, I probably get more into the nitty-gritty. And yeah, and I was going to say, is that more because I like it, or if it's more just the way that I work? But I think for me, it is about wanting people really to get organized. And I'm also really clear with my clients, both individuals as couples, is that I'm not a therapist. I'm not working as a therapist, and that I'm not going to be doing therapy with them. And I'm also not a financial advisor. So I'm not getting into where you should invest your money or what the tax implications of things are, but really much more about organizing. So I'm not billing myself either as a therapist or a financial advisor, but really about the organizing.
Mm-hmm. And I love this question you just asked about, is it partly because it's what I really like doing?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm thinking maybe it's all for all of us. Maybe it's always a combination that we're finding out what we most love doing, which is usually then what we're best at. And then
Exactly.
we're like putting that out there as this is what I can do for you. And then you're finding the people who really want what you love doing. So it kind of all works together.
You said it perfectly. I actually will say that a lot of time to clients, particularly when they're looking at career goals, is, when we are doing the things that play into our strengths, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have the most to offer, and it's the most energizing.
Yeah.
And it's the greatest gift to the world.
How do most of your clients find you?
It's interesting. Most of my clients find me through my website. And I will thank a mutual friend that we have, Sarah, who turned me on to someone that helped me develop my website. And really, it has done a great job of bringing people to me. So I would say, if I'm going to give a number, I would say about 65-70% of my clients come from my website and the rest from referrals from clients.
Oh, that is so great. I happen to know that the person you're talking about doesn't do that work anymore, or else I would put her information in the show notes too.
I know.
And what's your business model right now? Meaning just the combination of services that you're offering people.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I have done, and I'll backtrack just a little bit, when I started getting training in coaching, which was back in the late 90s, in the 1900s, I like to say. Back in the 1900s, when I was training in coaching, I also worked for a nonprofit organization, and I was really feeling kind of burnt out and dissatisfied there. And so I was looking for something different, got involved in the coaching, and interestingly, once I started doing the coaching, I grew a lot personally as well as professionally, and it actually changed me at my job. And so these many years later, I'm still there. So I do a combination of working at this nonprofit that I work for, as well as doing my coaching. So I have a small coaching practice. And right now, most of my clients are doing the work around financial organizing. And some of them, I'm thinking of a recent client that I just started working with, where he's a young person, he was really wanting a combination of the financial as well as the life coaching as he makes some decisions, as he's trying to move forward in his career. So we're really doing a hybrid of that. And so I have a few of those clients, but most of them are really around the financial organizing now.
Okay. Do you meet with them? Like, do you have a particular kind of coaching package that you offer people, or is it session by session?
I, at this point, do primarily session by session. When I started out, I was doing a model where I would have people pay a monthly fee, and then we would have so many sessions each month. If they didn't use those, I could carry them over into the next month. But now I'm doing the individual, and part of that is that my clients vary in terms of how they use the service. So some of them might be meeting with me, and when I say meeting, I mean by phone, talking with me on a weekly basis. Some of them are every other week. Some of them now are on a monthly basis. Some of them are doing quarterly check-ins. Maybe we've worked together for some time and they just want to do the check-ins like that. So it makes it much easier to figure out, okay, we're just paying for each session. And I typically just do it through a service like PayPal.
Okay. And how many sessions do you like to have in your coaching practice each week? I know you still have a whole other job.
Yeah. So I generally do my coaching on one day during the week because I flex my time at my other job. And then I will do some sessions on Saturday mornings. And right now I have about 10 clients that I'm working with.
Okay. And what do you charge?
So the fee that I charge is, so I do an initial session when I'm doing a discovery session, which is looking at the values, generally where their life is and what their goals are, and begin the process of, if we're looking at finances. That's a 2-hour session, and I charge $300 for that. And then for the ongoing, it's based on an hourly rate of $150. And, it's typically I'm working with them for a half hour or 45 minutes for couples.
It's so interesting, Pat. It seems like you could be charging so much more.
That's true. But actually, part of that is why I do this work, because a lot of the people that are coming to me are coming because they're having financial problems, right? And so I really am not wanting to price myself out of the group or the population that really needs a service to get back on track. And so, at some point I made that decision that I could charge much more, but I really want to help people get things together. And particularly if, it's somebody who's really working hard, and, we live in the Bay Area. It is so expensive. When I work with young people, they come in with debt, particularly student loans, right? And they're just trying to get by sometimes. And so really getting them on track, I feel, is the most important thing. And so I guess you would say it's my mission. And so it's not so much, and I will say, because I do have another job that makes it easier, that I feel fine with the fees.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You know exactly who your right fit client is. Yeah. And it works for you.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I get something back from the coaching, right? It feels good. I love working with my clients. When I see progress, I'm thinking one client right now, just, I said to her, we worked together for about 1.5 years. And at the end of it, I was like, you're ready to write the book on this now, right? Because between the work she had done personally, the work she had done in her family, the things she had learned, the changes in her accounts, right, were just spectacular. And so it was just like, that's great. That's the reward for me.
Money's a big deal. Getting your financial house in order and getting your mindset around money in order, I just feel like, for me, this has been not like it's all figured out now, but making huge progress on that just makes a big difference in every part of my life.
Yeah. Right. And money, as we know, money has so many messages and triggers and things attached to it. That's one of the things I talk with clients at the beginning is, what kind of messages did you get growing up? What was the situation like at home? How much was money talked about? Did you have any idea what was going on? Were there fights in your house about money? So all of those things impact people now. And particularly, what I'll find with women is a lot of times nobody talked to them about this, right? It was all kind of secretive. They may have known that there was tension around it at home, or they might have been in a situation, everything was just provided. I never thought about it. And then they're out on their own, and all of a sudden they don't know how to deal with this. Or, I certainly work with clients where they've gone through a divorce and now things have really changed, and maybe they might not have had a career. They might be starting off with that, or they just may not know how to manage the money or to think about, what am I going to do in retirement? That's a huge area for people. Is I, have worked with a number of clients where they hit their 50s, some 60s, and they just have no idea what they're going to do when they stop working.
And then I'm imagining, it's almost like this is such a therapist-y thing to say, but in a way you're kind of reparenting them at whatever stage they're at, in terms of, I think most of us don't get parented around finances very well. Even if the parenting went well in some other areas, so often parenting around all of the mindset plus the nitty gritty, it doesn't happen. And so someone's getting close to retirement. I'm just imagining that, I'm 45, so I'm not imagining that far away, but I'm imagining there could be so much shame if you don't
Yeah,
have that figured out yet. And then here they are
absolutely.
talking to you about it, working through the mindset, and then I'm imagining starting some kind of system.
Yeah. It's funny when that's I like that, the reparenting, because I do think that that's part of what I'm doing. And I'm laughing because my sister, uh, we've talked about we should have a show, a radio show or a podcast or something like what is it, the Click and Clack brothers that talked about car
Yeah.
talk. We want to do like money talk because we just feel like, didn't everybody learn this? Don't they know this, right? And yeah, so it is something that I do feel like a lot of the clients that I work with really are in a place where they haven't had those conversations. They haven't had someone who's held their hands or talked to them when they're going through a crisis. I mean, I talk to people, when I talk to them in the week, it's like, I was so on track, and then,
Hmm.
some emergency came up and I didn't plan on that, and I don't have any reserves, and how do I deal with that? Or, oh, I just spent a lot of money on something, and why did I do that? Right? So it's a
Hmm.
place to talk about that, and yeah, to have that. And I hope I will call myself a non-judgmental parent
Yeah.
around that, because I'm really just wanting them to be able to look at it and see what's going on for them around it.
Yeah. I experience you as so non judgmental.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And when you get into planning with people, do you recommend particular systems for your clients, or do you just help them figure out what systems are best for them?
You know, I have a very, very simple system. Okay.
Mhm.
I am old school. And, I feel fine with that because the equation about finances is really very simple. You need more income coming in than you have expenses going out. Simple
Mhm.
as that,
Mhm.
right? And then the more income you have over expenses, that's where you get to have savings. And then you have investments. And then you move into financial freedom. Okay.
Mm.
And so it's really very simple. But however they want to look at that, we can use the simple Excel spreadsheets that I have. A lot of people use Mint.
Mhm.
There are like a million programs out there. There are debt calculators. There are ways of doing this. So I really work with them around what's going to fit in for them. But basically, I'm making sure that they're really looking at their finances on a regular basis. So at the end of the month, they can say, this is what I projected and this is how it went. Now let's look at next month and how that's going to go. So, yeah, the system depends on them. Some people like bells and whistles. Personally, Mint.com didn't really turn me on. It was a little
Mhm.
bit too much.
Mhm.
But for other people, they love it. Other people simply use their bank accounts and their credit cards because everything now you can find all kinds of answers on there. But we want to bring it back to one place, whatever that is for them, where they can see this is what we're looking at and this is the progress you're making.
And so I'm also thinking about with coaching. So this is a really juicy niche that you
Mm-hmm.
have. And and then I'm thinking with coaching, do you believe, I'll just be transparent, that I believe that niching in coaching is incredibly important, like at least as
Yes.
important as with therapy?
Yes.
Yeah, what are your thoughts about
Absolutely.
that?
Absolutely. Um, yeah, there are, okay, I don't know the numbers, but there are many, 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 many therapists, right?
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
if you want a therapist that's going to focus on couples issues
Mhm.
or ADHD or depression, right? You're going to want a therapist that understands that, has trained and learned how to deal with those issues. The
Mhm.
same with coaching, right?
Yeah.
Some people want the generalist, just like, not sure, I just want my life to be more exciting or making progress in things. And they may want a life coach. And there are
Mhm.
lots of life coaches out there. But more and more, there is a, niching, if you will,
Yeah.
of the profession. And I think that that makes sense because, for example, with mine, it's like, yeah, if I want to look at finances, I want to know somebody who does say, this is my system, this is how I work, this is how long it's going to take, and this is what you're going to see. And So there are lots of specialties in the area of coaching, and it's getting, I think, more and more important and more specific for people doing that.
And then I think as a coach, even if your niche is incredibly specific, you will get to work on those really juicy life issues in just about any niche, whether it's like dating or finances or a coach who specializes in, I'm just making this up, like helping your parents, get end of life care, like whatever it is, you're going to get into the
there are people
juicy
that
stuff.
deal with retirement stuff, performance issues, speaking anxiety, all of these things. People can deal with those, and that'll be their specialty. Yeah, if you go to any of the websites, and I can give you some of those if you want to list them, you'll see specialist and you can see what they're focusing on. And yeah, I think that people really want that, right? And that's one thing with the website, that going back to that, is the person that helped me with that was really helping me see what's going to be, if the person's up at 2 a.m. going, I need help, what are the words? What are the things that they're saying to themselves? And make sure that you're addressing that in your website. So I think having the niche, people do want to make sure that they're working with somebody who really has a specialty, as an expert in that area.
Yes. They don't want to see, welcome to my website. They want to see, like, here's what I do. And here's how I can help.
Right. And here's the answers to the common questions that people are going to have before they make that decision.
Yeah. So, Pat, if you could time travel to when you were starting your coaching practice.
Back in the 1900s, yeah.
In the 1900s, what would you tell the Pat of that time?
That's a great question. I think I would say you're going to continue to love this and just do the part of it that feels good. And I would say, and these are the same things I would say to myself now, and be authentic, right? I am not Tony Robbins, okay? I'm not going to be that coach, right? And just be authentic, because the people that will work best with you will gravitate towards you, will feel good about your work, and they will spread the word to other people about that. I like time traveling. That's fun.
Those are so great. Has there been any time in your coaching business where I'm gonna guess that this hasn't happened in your coaching business, but I'll be curious if I'm wrong. Has there ever been a time in your coaching business where you were in a low or scary moment?
Sure.
Oh, there has. Okay. I love being wrong.
I wish you weren't. I would say a couple years into it, when I was doing primarily the life coaching, I partnered with 2 other coaches, one in Colorado and one in Texas, that we had, gotten to know each other through various coaches trainings. And we were all trying to build our practice. And at that point, everything was about, you got to have an interactive website, and it's got to be this, and you've got to do that, and you're going to have to, and all of it was the kind of marketing that just didn't speak to me. Okay. That just made me so nervous, right? It's like, oh my God, I'm going to have to, do and present myself in a way that just wasn't really me. I'm an introvert, right? And so I like to work more one-on-one. I like to do things that are kind of quieter and support me. And I'm not big on public speaking and promoting myself in a big, flashy kind of way. And so at that point, I was taking various marketing classes and looking at it. And at first it was intimidating, because I'd be hearing these things related to websites and presenting yourself that I was like, I can't do that. And I'm working and it's too much. And then finally, when I settled into, okay, this is my niche, this is who I am, and I don't need that many clients. I just relaxed into it. And that's when it took off. Yeah, it was like all of those things I was doing and stress I was feeling and anxiety just didn't work. And then it was like, okay, They're going to come. I mean, I had this experience with, I took this teleseminar around marketing with a wonderful person. And one of the things we were talking about was how many clients I wanted, right?
Mm-hmm.
And who my clientele was. And at that point, it was primarily, I was talking about midlife women in transition, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we went through this exercise where it was like, so how many women are there in the United States, right? And I'm like, I don't know, 50, I made up a number, 50 million, right? And she's like, okay, and how many are probably middle-aged? And I'm like, 10 million, right? She's like, okay, how many of those 10 million do you think are going through transitions? Like, I don't know, 5 million, right? And she's like, and how many clients do you want? And I just laughed. So I was like, yeah, I guess the market's out there. I don't need to worry.
And being more you made it work.
Yeah. Because, I mean, I went through the Coaches Training Institute in San Rafael, which is an excellent program. And one of the exercises we had to do was to come up with a life purpose statement. And the statement that I came up with is, I am the golden thread that makes patches into quilts.
Ooh.
And when I got to that, it was like, yeah, that's it. It's like I'm looking at people in this way that it's so beautiful, and we can put things together for ourselves, and yet we think of ourselves sometimes as patches or the pieces that got thrown away.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not that. We're really something beautiful. And interestingly, when I was working with a partner in this exercise, and I started out with, I am the thread that makes patches into quilts. And she kind of pushed me to put, I am the golden thread, which I think was a perfect coaching position for her. She's like, I want you to hold yourself the same way you hold your clients, right? You're not just a thread, you're a golden thread. Yeah, so that when I found that place where I could just be who I am and know it's all going to work out, the right people will want to work with me, and the ones that need to work with other kinds of people will work with them. There's enough for all of us.
Yeah. And you're always really positive about that too, and wish them well.
Yeah, that's one thing at the beginning of coaching that I was so impressed with was it just didn't feel competitive, right? It didn't feel like, well, there can only be 2 of us in this town.
Yeah.
It's like, no, support each other.
Will you join me for a listener question?
Absolutely.
Listener question.
Okay, so this is similar to a question that I get all the time. So I'm glad you're here to help me with it. So this person says, I've been in private practice for 5 years and I'm interested in adding coaching to my services. How do I get started with this? What kind of training should I get?
Great. I would definitely encourage the person to find a coach's training program. When I started the program that I went through at the Coaches Training Institute, the very first day, this was a weekend workshop, the very first day, there were, I think, about 16 of us in the room. And the facilitator asked, how many of you are therapists? And I would say probably 4 or 5 people in the room raised their hands. And he said, and how many of you feel like you're doing coaching in your practice? And all 4 or 5 of us raised our hands. And at the end of the workshop, he asked the same question. How many of you feel you had been coaching in your practice? None of us raised our hands. We learned it's a different process. And depending on the person, some therapists are probably doing things that are more similar to coaching. Maybe if they're doing a more behavioral or cognitive approach or solution focused, and others might be doing more psychodynamic or in-depth kind of work, might feel it's very different. So I think that taking at least an initial training to see, is this what I want to do? How does it differ from what I'm doing? And then to know that you can pretty much get started quickly. and really would encourage people, once they take that little step into it, that they start trying it out, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And do some coaching. That's how you're going to learn. It's different than therapy in the sense that, number one, the coaching profession is not as regulated as the therapy industry, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And it just is what it is. I think there's movement with that going more towards that happening. And obviously, we want therapists to be licensed and certified and regulated. But in in coaching, right, you're doing things, you're not working with clients around symptoms, you're not doing medication, you're not doing diagnosis, you're working with them as whole and creative, resourceful, able to do the things they need to do, coming from this positive place. And so with coaching, I would say get some training, get started, and then I think people can do both, but I would make sure that they're making a clear distinction in their practice, right? They may want to make sure they have a different website. They do want to make sure if they're having people sign consent forms that they're explaining what they're doing and the difference between that, because you want your clients to know. And even, I'm sure people who are therapists and have done coaching training probably take some of those techniques back into their therapy. Certainly coaches who have been trained as therapists bring a lot into their coaching practice in terms of listening and being comfortable with emotions and being able to just be with clients where they are. So I think they bring those strengths, but there are other skills they need to learn.
And one thing I want to add to that is, or just emphasize from what you said, is to keep it distinct.
Yes.
Like to have a really, often I do recommend that people consider having it on the same website, just so that all of the work that you've done building up your website can all go in the same direction.
They can utilize that. Yeah. So have a different page.
But definitely have a different page, have a different program, like have it just be so clear that I would really recommend, and you could really get in trouble for this too. Don't just say like, I offer therapy and coaching and leave it kind of murky.
Yes.
Make it really clear, like this is the program you're in, and you're not going to be working with one person in both ways. You're going to be having coaching clients, you're going to be having therapy clients. And then I'm certainly not an expert, the whole like what exactly are the rules and the regulations for each kind of therapy profession. So find out from whoever is in charge of your profession in that way, find out what exactly you're allowed to do. But yeah, keep it separate.
I would absolutely agree with you. I think that's really important that you're highlighting that, because there are different regulations and the client's expectations. So in my coaching practice, there have been really over the years, only a handful, but there have been a handful of clients that I've said, I'm not going to be able to work with you because I think what you really need to do is work in therapy on this, right? So it's important that they're comfortable referring clients out if they're doing coaching and they feel it needs to be therapy. And I would also, if they're doing something in therapy and they are going to do something that feels a little more like coaching, they should label that. Would you mind just trying this? I'm going to coach you a little bit on this, but if you're okay with it, we'll go ahead with that, right? But yeah, I think in terms of keeping people, the therapist and the coach, safe, you want to be very clear. My consent forms and coaching state very clearly that I'm not providing therapy. And as I said before, I'm not providing financial advice, because I do want to be clear with the people coming forward that is not my area of expertise or what I'm bringing to these sessions.
Yeah. And then for someone who is working some of the time as a therapist and some of the time as a coach, have two sets, absolutely, of consent forms. Yeah. Thank you so much, Pat. That is super helpful, because this is a really common question, which I think is great. I'm really excited that so many therapists are considering also becoming coaches.
Yes, because therapists bring some wonderful, wonderful skills to the table right away.
I think one place to start with the training, and this is all stuff, of course, that I got from you, Pat, is that the Coactive book.
Yes.
And I will put that in the show notes, because that can just give you kind of an outline of, all right, this is what coaching is, or at least,
Yes.
one set of people's
Right.
ideas
One
of
model
what
of it.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely refer people to, it's a great book. I would refer people to the Coaches Training Institute in San Rafael, which has a wonderful 1 weekend intro to coaching. And they generally say, this will tell you whether you want to do it or not. And then if you want to do it, you can move forward, right, and get certified. I would also refer people to the International Coaches Federation, which is the association for coaches, and has a lot of information and how people can get certified, and which of the programs, the coaching programs across the country, across the world really, that meet their qualifications in terms of being the highest level of accreditation.
And Pat, where can people find you and throw compliments at you?
Oh, that's so nice. At Pat Chambers. It's called Pat Chambers Life Coach. It's so funny. I talk about my website all the time, and I haven't looked at it, which I think is one of the great things about the website is I don't do anything to it. The gift that keeps on giving.
So patchamberslifecoach.com. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, Annie, it was my pleasure. I loved talking to you, and I'm going to take a couple of these questions away to think about a little more.
Oh, cool. Here's an idea to try.
Idea to try.
There is no neutrality when it comes to racism. Racism is not okay. Black lives matter, and I think we can all agree on that. So here's an idea for white therapists like me. Let's use whatever platforms we have in our businesses to be clear that racism is not okay with us and that we stand up for Black lives. Now, if you're wondering why I'm saying Black lives matter rather than all lives, it's because in so many ways Black lives are under attack right now. It has nothing to do with devaluing anyone else's life, of course. When a group is being singled out and harmed, it's just human to say, you matter to us. As white therapists, I think we can tend to get a little bit fragile. When racism comes up, sometimes we get uncomfortable or defensive or maybe silent. We worry we're going to say the wrong thing. Here's the thing, we're healers. We're committed to working on our stuff and doing what's hard. So that means we have to work on our own stuff around racism too, so we can do better, so we can be there for our clients of color and our colleagues of color and help each other do better. So I'm absolutely not saying I have this all figured out. That's really not the point. I don't think any of us do. This is about continuing to grow, continuing to learn, and continuing to do better than we have been. Thanks for listening to Therapist Clubhouse. I love answering questions with my guests. Please submit your question for us to tackle. Email me at info@coachingwithannie.com with your question, and let me know if you'd like to be anonymous. I'll see you next week. Yeah, there's a quote about that, but I'm not going to think of it. I'm going to let that go.
I know. I have one that there's something about when the war. Yeah, we'll skip that one.
Yeah.